Mohamed El-Erian is a chief economic advisor at Allianz and a former deputy director of the IMF, now president of Queen's College, Cambridge, and he joins me now. I mean, that's a pretty arresting headline, Mohamed. Wall Street plummets as US recession fears mount. I saw another story this morning on Bloomberg that if you were to focus exclusively on the billionaires who were sitting in the row behind Donald Trump at his inauguration, just that small cabal of billionaires, they have lost $209 billion collectively in the same time frame. How big a deal is it?
It's a big deal for the US because the narrative has changed completely. A few months ago, James, everybody was talking about US economic exceptionalism, this notion that the US was a juggernaut and nothing could stop it and it would outperform all other countries. Now, as you pointed out, people are worried about recession. So it's been a dramatic change, and it has to do with policy uncertainty. There's growing evidence of businesses stepping back and not investing because they don't understand their operating environment. And there's growing evidence of people spending less because they're worried about their income going forward.
And one of the most obvious examples of this would be the sort of hokey cokey of tariffs. You know, he puts his left leg in, he takes his left leg out, in, out, shake it all about, and you don't even know in some sectors or in some countries whether a tariff has been applied or not.
Yes, I mean, the CEO told me the other day, I just want to know what my operating environment looks like. Will I have tariffs? Will I not have tariffs? I just need to be able to know this in order to make decisions. And if I don't know it, I'm going to postpone my decisions.
Does anybody profit from this sort of chaos? I suppose some traders will, won't they? They'll have gambled on the dips that we saw in the markets yesterday and turned a profit accordingly.
Yes, I suspect, and we'll see these numbers. I mean, the people who get hurt as usual are the small investors. And then there is the risk of the economy. You know, the one weakness of US economic exceptionalism was that it didn't include the lower income households. They were in terrible shape. They've spent all their pandemic savings. They've run down their ability to borrow. Their credit cards are maxed out, and they are really suffering. So the last thing they need is to lose income and to have fewer jobs.
And they were most susceptible to the sort of unspecified promises of jam tomorrow that Donald Trump made during his campaign, the sort of broad brushstroke pledges to improve your life and make you richer, claiming, I think, when Joe Biden was in the White House, that a good performance of the stock market was somehow down to him, whereas now he's in the White House. I imagine at some point today he'll probably blame the bad performance of the stock market on his predecessor.
Yeah, I mean, people are surprised that he, instead of talking the market up, which he did in his first term, he's actually come out and with his other senior officials said this is a period of detox. We can absorb the little disturbances, bumps along the way. So their narrative is also changing. I think they realize that there isn't much they can do right now unless they want to provide clarity. And as some people say, unpredictability is not a bug, it's a feature.
And what they say when they mean that is that it's deliberate.
Correct, that it puts everybody in a situation where they're totally unbalanced and you keep them guessing. But that's not a way to run a country. I mean, you can do it initially and you can score wins initially. But if you do it continuously, people disengage.
I mean, I think, I don't know whether it's more your field than or mine, actually, but the dangers of thinking that we can apply rational analysis. I've almost got a mantra now of pointing out that the tools we normally use, whether you're a political commentator or an economic advisor, an economic analyst, the tools that we normally use are largely useless when it comes to Donald Trump. Are we looking for rhyme and reason where there simply may not be any?
So you're right. I'll give you an example. Trade is inherently a cooperative game. If you and I trade, it's because we understand that we'll both benefit. If we suddenly turn it into something uncooperative and I start threatening you and bullying you, yes, I'll win in the short term, but you will simply disengage from me. That's not the way trade is supposed to be conducted. And I think we're starting to see this in many areas of the US economy. Look, it's still retrievable. Nothing has fundamentally been broken, but you don't want to continue in this paradigm for too long.
And in the context of recession, what would we be looking for next? What would we be looking for as good news or bad news in that context?
So first, my own probability of a recession for the US is somewhere between 25 to 30%.
Okay.
So it's not over 50%, but it's above the 10% it was at the beginning of the year. What you need to look for is whether companies continue to go to the sideline and say, this is too complicated. I don't understand it. I'm just going to wait because I don't want to make a big mistake.
And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? I don't quite see what resolution looks like, except a return to the sort of normality that Donald Trump's entire shtick historically is a rejection of. I mean, if there isn't chaos, if there isn't disruption, there's no Trump.
So his view is this is simply a little bit of pain because he is taking the US economy to a place where it will trade in a fairer global system, that the US will be respected and treated properly, to a place where the government becomes more efficient,
right,
to a place where fiscal dominance, as the economists call it, is less acute. That's how he sees it. But you and I know that you may have a destination, but if the journey there is too bumpy, your destination is not guaranteed.
Final question: does anyone agree with him?
Yes, there's quite a few. There's quite a few
objective, independent analysts, not just Marco Rubio.
No, I mean, there's a few economists.
There are.
It'll bring you back to the supply side revolution
Yep.
that the UK went through, that believe that all problems come down to a government that's too big, and if you simply take a hammer to it and just destroy
a chainsaw, Mohamed, a chainsaw.
A chainsaw, thank you. I was trying to avoid that image.
Very wise. So he's not, so he's not without support, but for the rest of us, it's a rather pessimistic watching brief. Thank you, Mohamed El-Erian.